Jam Session is a podcast where two guys who grew up in Dallas-Fort Worth discuss sports, craft beer, life, and their experiences living in one of America's most vibrant cities. If you love sports, you're going to love this show. If you love craft beer or you're curious about it, you'll love this show. Great conversations with good friends is what Jam Session is all about.
Welcome. It's nice to have you here. I hope you enjoy it. I think you will.
You're listening to the Jam Session Podcast.
I was told that I could listen to the radio at a reasonable volume.
With Cowboys insider...
What's your name?
Jean-Jacques Taylor.
That's my name.
Radio personality and craft beer expert, Matt McLaren.
He's a very strange young man.
He's an idiot. Comes from upbringing.
And now, the Jam Session Podcast. It is indeed Jam Session. Subscribe, rate, and review, and hang out with us for a while. Right here on the Jam Session Podcast. The moment we've all been waiting for has arrived. Ladies and gentlemen, the radio, TV, and now podcast star, the sexy Jean-Jacques Taylor.
What up, dog?
I would be the non-sexy one, Matt McLaren. And this is Jam Session, the podcast, version 27, asking simply that you prepare to be dazzled.
If not entertained.
As we always like to dazzle you and entertain you with our sponsors, we appreciate what they do. So please support our sponsors as they support us. And of course, one of those, Edward Jones financial advisor, Lauren Laddick. Lauren works with small and large businesses to help not only yourself, but she can also help your employees' retirement planning, making it easy for everybody involved. That's where Lauren can help you out, whether it's 401k questions, stocks and bonds, or as I mentioned, planning for retirement. Lauren Laddick with Edward Jones provides the tools for a reasoned, disciplined approach to investing, and she can connect in several ways, including what a lot of people are doing, those virtual meetings, so you don't have to meet face-to-face. So get a hold of her, schedule it, and see if she can help you and your company with retirement planning. She'll work with you to find those answers. Give her a call. 972-563-1417. That's 972-563-1417 for Lauren Laddick. And of course, let's tell you about our friends at Freeway Tire Shop, easy to get to in Dallas. Jacques been there, had his oil changed right off of 35. JR and those boys at Freeway Tire Shop will take care of you and your service needs, whether it's the oil change, like Jacques got, the state inspection, alignments, general mechanic work, and of course, obviously, tires. You know, they put pictures up on their Instagram. You should find them because they show you some of the work that they do, which is actually really cool. So check out what they do. Again, you can find them on Instagram or their website, freewaytireshop.com. Schedule an appointment, request a quote at freewaytireshop.com. But let's get into this one today. And we are going to have some Cowboys discussions for you. We, of course, will talk with our ESPN NFL insider, Todd Archer, who is brought to you by Blue Star Motor Group. He will be joining us here in just a bit on this version of the podcast. We'll take a trip around the block. We do have some Cowboys thoughts, and we'll go around the NFL with what we saw over the weekend. But believe it or not, as we record this on December 1st, the Dallas Mavericks open training camp today.
Don't seem like it, bro.
I mean, that is, it doesn't. It's wild. And, you know, yes, I get it. It's been essentially 2 months since the end of the NBA season. It's been 71 days since the end of the NBA Finals. The Mavs, of course, knocked out in the first round, so they've had a little bit more time than that. But, man, did that go by fast. As a matter, I can't
even believe it's been 71 days, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I know. It doesn't seem like it's been that long since the end of the NBA Finals. The Mavs open camp today, December 1st. Their first preseason game is December 12th.
So they are already only 2 weeks away from strapping it up and let's go play ball.
Yeah, I mean, it's right there. December 12th, of course, is the Saturday after this upcoming one. I mean, and, you know, they've got 2 preseason games against Milwaukee. Now, the NBA has not released the schedule yet. It may happen today. It may happen at some point after we record this. It may happen tomorrow. It is expected that they're going to release the schedule sometime either today or in the next couple of days. But this is going to be interesting because for those that don't know, the NBA is not releasing the full schedule. They will be releasing what they call the first half. I kid you not. Because, again, let's catch everybody up. It's a 72-game regular season this year, which is 10 games less than a normal 82-game season.
Right.
So the first half of the schedule will be released, and then we won't know the second half of the schedule for a couple of months, because what the NBA is going to do, and this actually makes a lot of sense, the NBA is going to release the first half, and then towards the end of the first half of the season, they will release the second half of the schedule, and that will give them some ability, like if there's a COVID outbreak, if something happens and they have to postpone or cancel games early, then they'll know and they'll have the ability to look at the second half for rescheduling purposes.
That makes perfect sense, but who's surprised by that? It's the NBA, man. They seem to have a sense of how to get things done and how to get them done in the right way.
Now, the All-Star break is set for March 5th through 10th, so the second half of the season wouldn't be until after March 10th. The season will end on May 16th, and they did vote once again, and I think this is just going to be how the NBA moves forward, maybe forever. They did vote to have that play-in tournament again, where seeds 7, 8, 9, and 10 all play each other in a mini tournament to see who gets the 7 and 8 seeds. That will be May 18th through 21st, with the playoffs set to start on May 22nd.
Oh, I think they like that.
It's cool. I mean, it worked.
I think that thing worked out pretty good for them, and they're like, hey, we got something we fell into. Let's keep it going. Oh, I think there's no doubt they like that, man.
Yeah, it keeps some of those teams in, like, look, if you suck and you don't have a prayer, then obviously that's different. But I do think that is actually maybe the best thing they've come up with against anti-tanking in a long time. Because if you're even at 11 or 12 and you think you've got a shot to get that 10 seed, well, if you can get the 10 seed and then you can beat the 7 and maybe get into an actual playoff series, next thing you know, there it is. Maybe 2 weeks to go in the season, you're the 12th seed, but then, 6 weeks down the road, you wind up playing in a playoff series.
No, it's whatever incentive you have to keep people playing hard for as long as you can. It makes sense, and it's good for the league.
Yeah, it's interesting because we actually did that a couple years ago in my fantasy football league in a weird way, because a lot of the teams that weren't any good or had bad records, I should say, guys would kind of check out and not pay attention. So what we did was we made our final wild card spot, regardless of record, goes to the team that has the highest points that didn't make the playoffs. And so that motivates people to still make moves and to try and put together good lineups and pay attention, because if they finish with enough points, they could bump the team in 6th if they have more points than the team in 6th, which is kind of a way of doing that.
It also stops those stupid trades where, hey, I'll give you 3 starters for one guy just so I can keep him for next year.
Yeah, maybe. I did that because I didn't care. I was like, I'm not going to win the league. I probably am going to end up making the playoffs. We'll see. But, I mean, I can look at my roster pretty easy. I mean, I don't have a title-winning team, so I'm going to go ahead and gut it and see if I can make the playoffs and go from there. Because I don't care. I mean, making the playoffs, I guess for some people, that's enough. Yeah. I'm here for titles.
I was going to say, we've got 3 titles, man. It's all about titles. And if it weren't for Nick, you'd be the greatest of all time.
It's very true. And I probably still am, since I've been in the finals more than he has. But we look at this with the Mavs, and as far as the scheduling goes, to get back to this, the Mavs play each team in the Western Conference 3 times, each team in the Eastern Conference twice. The NBA Finals end on July 22nd, 2021, with the Summer Olympics set to begin the very next day, July 23rd. They wanted the season to end by the Olympics so that they could have NBA players in the Olympics if they so choose. But as we look at the Mavs, we know the moves they've made in the offseason. We know that they are one of the very best teams set up for free agency 2021. They didn't do a lot this year. We knew that they wouldn't. They made some interesting moves in the draft. Obviously, the trade of Seth Curry to bring in the enforcer for Josh Richardson for Luka Doncic. But this is a season, and you've talked about this many times, Jacques, that the season of, oh, that's really cool, they made the playoffs, that's fun, man, this is great. This season does have expectations. Now, I don't know how high they are, but my expectation is that this team wins a playoff series.
I think it's fair. I think some of it, realistically, Doug, some of it's going to depend on the health of Kristaps Porzingis and how much he plays. And if he's healthy and if he's the guy that we saw at various times last year. If he is, then yeah, I think it's fair to say, hey, go to the playoffs, get a top 4 seed, go win a playoff series, and let's go see what happens in the Western Conference semifinals.
Yeah, and Porzingis, for those that don't remember, he had the surgery, and he is not going to start the regular season with the Mavs. He will be out. They say it'll probably be and this is not like that drastic of a missing amount of time, because the Mavs, most likely, the NBA season starts December 22nd. The Mavs probably will have one of the marquee games, I would imagine. I bet they play on Christmas this year.
Oh, yeah, I think so, man.
So Porzingis is going to miss a few games, but they do anticipate that he'll be back sometime in January pretty early on. So he won't have to miss too much, it doesn't sound like. Now, that being said, we already know how this is going to go. I doubt he's going to play a lot of back-to-back games, and they're going to rest him and load manage him as the season goes through, which is one of the reasons why, Willie Cauley-Stein, of course, is no Kristaps Porzingis, but him being back and their ability to re-sign him helps a little bit. He was a good fit at times last year for the Mavs. So we'll see, but regardless of how it goes with Luka, and the offense is going to be there because they had record-setting offense last year. Yes, you lose Seth Curry. Hopefully some of the rookies maybe can step up and make an impact. They're going to have some open shots. You expect that they're going to improve, that Luka's going to improve. The key is going to be, did the changes they make in the offseason focus solely on defense to improve that? Did they do good enough job there so that this defense can be good enough to help them in some of those close games and clutch situations that we had seen how poorly they were late in games? And is that enough if you get into the playoffs to maybe win a series and maybe still a second one?
Yeah, I think it's that, and I think it's how well they play defense in terms of winning at the end. But it's also, it wasn't just a defensive issue, man. It was an offensive execution issue at the end of games. And as Luka becomes an even better player, I think some of that naturally they should be better at that because he should be a better player this year, whether it's getting guys open shots or attacking the rim more in those situations as opposed to settling for jumpers. And I just think his natural evolution makes them a better team. He's a true superstar in the NBA. And if they've gotten better in terms of being able to hit open threes and open shots from the looks that he gets them, then they'll win even more.
Yeah, and this is going to be a really interesting season, I think, for them because making the playoffs, as crazy as it may sound, I think is a given for this team. Barring something colossal that nobody sees coming, they're in the playoffs. Now,
right.
Like we said, the expectation that we've talked about before is what do you do when you get there? Can you learn? You took the Clippers a little bit further, I think, than pretty much anybody thought they were going to be able to do in the first round this year. They got some playoff experience for Luka and for KP and the rest of the guys, obviously. And now the key is going to be, and we've talked to Chuck Cooperstein about this as well, had a conversation with them a couple of weeks ago on the podcast about this. Are the Mavs going to be good enough this year to make that jump into the top four? Can they slot themselves in, whether it's behind the Lakers and the Clippers, the Nuggets, the Jazz, whoever's going to be up there in the top four? Can they be fighting for perhaps to get home court advantage if they play in their own arenas and don't have a bubble for the playoffs again and all that, which we assume they'll be able to do by the time May and June roll around? Can you get home court advantage for the first round and see what you can do? Because the expectation is that and this is what's crazy about this franchise, 2021, we're a month away from 2021. It'll have been 10 seasons. The last time the Mavericks got out of the first round was the year they won the title in 2011.
Wow. Man, it's hard to believe it, but it's true when you say it like that. It's just hard to think about it like that, man. But it's been a minute. They went through that down stretch. Now they've got, because it's all about the superstar in the NBA, man. Dirk was a superstar. He was on the back end. He could no longer carry the team. They've got a new superstar, and now it's a matter of how long it takes him until he's ready to take this team to the conference finals or the championship.
Yeah, and I don't know. This is not that year, and I think that that's key as well. Yeah, they might surprise some people. Who knows? As we saw this year in the playoffs, when the Clippers wanted to bring their A game, it was obvious the Mavs just weren't on that level, but they did take them to 6 games. And who knows what will happen when you get there, because nobody knew that Luka was going to make as drastic a jump as he did last season. Who knows what jump he'll make, what he's been able to work on in this shortened offseason that he had of about 3 months roughly for him to work on a variety of different things. But it's going to be one of those things when you look at this in the West with those top 3 teams that are probably Denver, the Clippers, the Lakers in whatever order. Can you make it to a level where from time to time you can play on that level? That's what I'll be curious to see, especially late in games, like you pointed out, with the offensive execution. Is your defense better? And have you learned to close out some of those games? Because if you can, there's no reason why this team can't be a 3 or a 4 seed.
Nah, I mean, look at their record in games decided by 3 or less or 5 or less last year is atrocious. So if you do the age-old remedy, which is go 500 in those games, all right, now they're at 50-plus wins. And that's what it's going to take to get to top 4. But they're capable of doing that, man.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, they finished. Denver had 46 wins. They were the 3 seed. Dallas had 43 wins. The Clippers had 49 wins last year. And I know it was a different type of season and all that, but point being, you're only 5-6 wins away, to your point. If you can start winning some of those close games, this team should be no worse than a 4 seed, I think. You got to wonder, Oklahoma City is done. We all know that. They're going to drop like a rock in the standings. It'll be interesting to see, some of the moves that Phoenix has made and the way that they played in the bubble. Have they found something and they're going to put something together? At some point, New Orleans and the development of Zion, all that's going to start coming together for them in the Western Conference. But the Mavs, I think, are at the leader of that pack of the next wave of up-and-coming teams in the West.
I don't think there's any doubt about that. I mean, if you look at it, I think it's Portland should probably be a little bit better this year. But then Golden State I thought was going to be better, but without Klay Thompson, even though they traded for Kelly Oubre, he's not Klay Thompson. So, I think they may dip a little bit. So, I mean, you look at Denver, I think they're definitely a team on the rise. We haven't heard much about the Spurs.
They're done.
So I was going to say I think their run is over until they get another superstar, because the guys that they have are really good players, but they're not guys who elevate you, and now they're getting older. So, yeah, I mean, if you just look at it, man, the Mavs look like a top 4 team in the West. Houston's done, I think. They got so many problems down there. I think there's going to be a lot of dysfunction. So it's wide open, man. It's there. And, the disappointment of the Cowboys season is about to give way to the NBA and the Mavs and the feel-good that is Luka, KP, and Carlisle.
Yeah, it's going to be a blast. Unfortunately, I've got to figure out how I'm going to watch it, because YouTube TV, Sinclair Broadcasting, which holds all the Fox regional networks,
yes,
they're not on anything. I don't even know what they're on. I think AT&T might be the only one that they're still carrying.
No, they're not on.
They're not on YouTube TV anymore. As soon as the season ended last year, locally, Fox Sports around the country, their extension of an agreement with Sinclair ended, and they no longer are carried by YouTube TV.
Really?
Yes, and Hulu doesn't have them. I'm trying to think, because I was doing some research on this a couple of weeks ago when I thought about it, because, man, I got to figure out, how do I watch the Mavs? And I don't know, maybe you got to pay for the Fox Sports app or something to be able to watch games. I have no idea how it's going to work.
Dude, we're going to have to do research. You just threw a wrench in my plan. I mean, I think it's probably that. I don't mind paying for the Fox Sports app, because the hockey will be on that as well. If that's what you got to do, although that's another expense I didn't expect to incur. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, I really enjoy the NBA, and this is me, because I really enjoy the NBA and there's a lot of good teams out there. I'm not opposed to getting the NBA League Pass, and then I just watch them all and I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, that may be the way to go through YouTube TV, because you're going to have to do something. But yeah, everybody keep that in mind, that Hulu and YouTube no longer carry the Fox Sports regional networks, which obviously Fox Sports Southwest is Stars and Mavs here. And I believe, unless it's changed in the last couple of weeks, the only network thing or whatever that carries it is still AT&T TV.
Really? I can't believe that, dude. We're going to have to talk about that in its own entity one day, because that at one level, that's, oh my God, I can't really believe it. But I'm convinced, man, that just like we're saying, and I think this is coming, Matt, just like we're saying, well, I don't know, we could just buy the NBA League Pass. It seems to me, and it might be out there and I just have forgot or don't know, you should be able to say, if I want to buy the NBA League Pass for $400 or whatever it is, $300, I should be able to buy just the Mavericks all year for,
right,
$85 or whatever it is.
Yeah, $1 a game, something like that. I would agree. I would agree. And that's something that's really frustrating and annoying about what's going on with, and it's not just YouTube TV, but these services and Sinclair and unable to come to an agreement, and something's got to get figured out. And who knows, maybe by the end of December, when the NBA and all these regional networks are starting back up. Sinclair and YouTube and Hulu and whatnot will figure this out. But as it sits right now on December 1st, neither one of those services carries any Fox Sports regional network anywhere. I mean, you could be listening to this wherever you are. It doesn't have to be Southwest. It's wherever. They don't carry them.
That's unbelievable. I didn't even know that, man.
As we continue with you here on the Jam Session podcast, as always, we love to tell you about our sponsors. They're helping make the Jam Session podcast possible, so we appreciate what they do. One of our newest sponsors, and Jacques, you're quite familiar with these guys, Blue Dragon Fine Art.
Yeah, Matt. You know, my man Logan Renfro, he's a lifelong Cowboys fan who's created this online art gallery, Blue Dragon Fine Art. And here's what he wants you to know. There's a piece of art to fit everybody's budget. All you got to do, kind of like craft beer, is find the right one. Now, I got to tell you, Matt, I like art, and I think the right piece can really liven a room or create a conversation. And I looked at the site, and there's several intriguing pieces. I even inquired about one. No lie, Matt. I did. It's this orange thing. It would fit because I like orange. It's my favorite color to fit in the room. It's kind of an abstract thing. But here's the deal with Blue Dragon Fine Art. It's designed to encourage and support collectors or aspiring collectors who just starting to put their collection together. And Blue Dragon Fine Art also wants to elevate artists of different styles at any stage of their career who want a little more visibility. And the gallery fits in well with the jam session culture. Why, Matt? Because we're just a couple of guys from Dallas who love local. Whether it's restaurants, craft beer, or fine art, and Blue Dragon Fine Art is no different. As the holidays are approaching, find something unique for your home or a gift for a family member or a friend to help support local artists. Check them out, BlueDragonFineArt.com. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram, too.
Yeah, he's got his Instagram is a really cool place to check out, too, because he's got all the art up on there as well. And it's really, really interesting stuff. As a matter of fact, I've got a buddy who does art that I need to tell him so they can meet, because I got a friend that I went to college with who is an artist, like part-time on the side of his normal job. And this dude is phenomenal. I mean, I asked about a piece once because he did this piece, a Star Wars piece with Kylo Ren and all that. And Maddox loves Star Wars. And I was like, how much, man? Like, give me an old college friend discount. And he told me, I was like, I'm out. I was like, I don't have that kind of cheese. But, you know, there is a lot of really cool local artists doing really good stuff. So check them out, Blue Dragon Fine Art, and find a piece for you or somebody you love. And then, of course, let's tell you about HFX Foundation Solutions, a full-service foundation repair company that services all of Dallas-Fort Worth. Anybody who either owns, rents, is familiar with homes in North Texas knows, man, we have all kinds of foundation problems in this area. The ground here, I don't think originally when Earth was made was meant for homes.
True that.
But we live here, and so sometimes you're going to run into those problems where you see the cracks maybe in the ceiling, the cracks in the driveway, what have you, and you may have a foundation problem. So give HFX Foundation Solutions a call. You can hit them up at 817-770-0174. You can find them online at hfxfoundation.com. They specialize in slab and pier and beam foundation repair. They also do drainage and gutter installations, and they will work with you to create a repair plan that is affordable, reliable, and warranted. So give them a call. You do get that initial free inspection, and HFX will be there with you the whole way. A-rated with the Better Business Bureau. Check them out, hfxfoundation.com. But let's get into our daily trip around the block here. Local guys talking about local things. And we have a couple of interesting stories for you today. Now, first off, before we get into the one that you're just going to be like, wait, what? First, Fuzzy's Taco Shop, which started in Fort Worth in 2003. As a matter of fact, I believe the original location was over there, like right off the TCU campus next to the Aardvark over there back in the day. Because I was waiting tables over there at Fridays at the time when Fuzzy's came around, and everybody's like, oh, have you had Fuzzy's? You got to go check out Fuzzy's. That was the original location. Well, fast forward 17 years later, and Fuzzy's Taco Shop now has 150 locations in 16 different states.
Really?
Yes. I didn't know that they were all over the place like that with the states.
Dude, they got 2 within 4 miles of my house.
Yeah, they're all over. Like, I know that they're all over this area. I didn't realize that they were in other states.
Yeah.
Which is, 16 different states? That's a bunch. And so Fuzzy's is leaving Fort Worth, their corporate headquarters.
Oh.
They have decided to leave Fort Worth, and they are moving right next to me, they have found a place in the Las Colinas area of Irving, and this is going to be north, like up there by 635.
Right.
And they have selected an 8,000 square foot building to serve as their new corporate headquarters. They will have somewhere around the neighborhood of 35 employees that work there at the headquarters. And the reason why, and this is one of the reasons why, especially like Chappelle and a variety of other areas like right around Irving and Las Colinas, even on into the other neighborhood of Valley Ranch. And you can see like Colleyville has expanded so much recently, Grapevine. And they said this, the central location of the Metroplex and being close to DFW Airport.
Dude, yeah, it makes sense to me.
That's why, like, for instance, the College Football Playoff Selection Committee, the reason why they meet at the Gaylord Texan, because you fly into DFW, which is smack dab in the middle of the country from either coast, or it's an easy flight from a variety of big-time cities in the South, in the Midwest, what have you, whether it's Chicago, Atlanta, wherever. And guess what? The Gaylord Texan, you land at DFW, and 5 minutes later, you're in your room at the Gaylord Texan.
No, dude. One of the reasons I lived in, Euless early in my career was because I was traveling so much. It was nice to be able to leave your house an hour before the flight, get to the airport in 10 minutes, get there in time to check in. And as soon as you get through check-in, they're boarding your flight. Because you don't have to get there, you don't have to leave 2 hours early, worried about traffic and that stuff.
Yeah, Irving, we've lived in Irving for like a year, like 15
Irving.
months or whatever. And Irving is really interesting because I never thought about it because I grew up in Rockwall, as everybody's familiar with. And so, like, my childhood was in Plano, and then in 7th grade, we lived in Rockwall until after I graduated high school. My parents lived out there. They still live out there. But, having grown up over there, I was familiar, obviously, with Rockwall and Wiley and Saxe and Garland and Rowlett and all those communities. And so my mind always thinks north and east of Dallas. And it was my lady friend who had found this area of Irving. And I was like, I haven't really spent a lot of time other than, maybe you'd come over here for the Byron Nelson or what have you, or back in the day, like when Texas Stadium was here. And we kind of were over here. It's like, there's a lot to do over here. This is great. The Toyota Music Factory area. And one of the things I love the most, you don't feel like you're close to Dallas. And I can leave my driveway and be not in rush hour. I'm talking about just normal traffic. I can be in downtown Dallas in 15 minutes.
It doesn't get much better than that, bro.
And I can be in downtown Fort Worth in about 22 minutes.
Now, see, I can match you on the downtown Dallas in 15 minutes, 12 minutes. I cannot match you to downtown Fort Worth.
Which I think is really cool. I mean, it is this area of the DFW Metroplex. You have easy access into Dallas and easy access into Fort Worth, and you can hit both sides. We've gone over to Fort Worth area way more often than I probably ever have, just because it's not an hour plus away from me anymore.
Nah, it's all good, man. I think that's a good thing, and I think it makes sense for why you'd move your corporate offices a little more centrally located.
Yeah. So welcome, Fuzzies. Your corporate. I mean, obviously. I mean, we went to Fuzzies for whenever that was, like International Taco Day or whatever. I forget what they call it. And the big taco day every year. We went over there because there's one. It's right off of 635 in MacArthur. They took this old gas station service station and gutted it and turned it into a Fuzzy's taco shop. And it is massive. It has a massive patio. Now, obviously, during the pandemic, things are so much different. But usually you can go to that one. And I mean, literally, you could throw a rock and hit 114. And it's that close. And on a nice spring day or fall day in normal times, you can sit out on that patio. It's open. It's gorgeous. It's huge. It's a really cool thing. And Fuzzies, I like Fuzzies. I'm a fan of the way Fuzzies does their tacos and their burritos and stuff like that. They found something 17 years ago. Obviously, it's popular all across the place, man.
Now, we go there not quite a bit, but we go there Somewhat regularly. It's always delicious.
Yeah, there's one in Deep Ellum, or at least there used to be. I haven't been to Deep Ellum maybe in some time, but that they placed it stayed open late. So after you go down there and drink and have a good time at Deep Ellum, you'd go to Fuzzy's and you could sit there and chow down, which I imagine was part of the appeal of the one in Fort Worth over there by the Aardvark. You'd go and drink and listen to music at the Aardvark and walk a couple of doors down and there's Fuzzy's. But as we continue with you here on our trip around the block, this next one, I've read this story, I don't even know how many times. I've sent it to very many of my friends because a lot of my friends live in this area.
Right.
A mountain lion.
Dude.
A mountain lion has been confirmed to have been spotted in Dallas County. It is the first ever officially confirmed mountain lion sighting in Dallas County in record history, which essentially means that the Texas Parks and Wildlife, however far back their records go, this is the first time that they can confirm a sighting of a mountain lion in Dallas County since they've been keeping records.
Dude, this is crazy because guess what? Mountain lion ain't by itself.
No. And now this one is way up there in essentially like way out east Dallas County, in northeast Dallas County, really, in Rowlett, which is on the west side of Lake Ray Hubbard across the lake from Rockwall. And it was a camera. It was spotted on camera by Lake Ray Hubbard on a property that backs up to Lake Ray Hubbard at 4 a.m. on November 22nd. Now, essentially what happened was the people who own that property we're like, oh my God, this is a mountain lion. And so they posted it in this animal Facebook group that apparently is really popular. And the dude that runs that was like, yep, that's a mountain lion. And they sent the video into the Texas Park and Wildlife place. The guy, the wildlife expert who runs this Facebook page, who's not associated with the department, is not a state official. He went out and found the tracks and confirmed they were a mountain lion, took pictures of them. And so what happened, unfortunately, the Texas Parks and Wildlife, they sent an official out there, like a state official. And by the time he got out there, he couldn't find the tracks. But they looked at the video, they looked at the pictures that were taken of the tracks, and they have confirmed it's a mountain lion.
If you were thinking about going jogging in the dawn hours, give that up for a little while.
Now, it's interesting, too, because there's another lady in this article who lives in Rowlett in the Dalrock area, for those of you that are familiar, and it doesn't say exactly where. I mean, Dalrock goes from 30 all the way up to 66 in Rowlett, so who knows what part of Dalrock. But she lives in a neighborhood that has a chain link fence at her house, and she said that just after midnight on the morning before this was spotted on camera that she saw what she thought was a mountain lion. She got out of her car and it jumped over her fence into her backyard, and she let out a shriek, and the mountain lion turned and looked at her and then wandered off. And then a few hours later, there's a confirmed sighting on a camera of this bad boy.
Dude, I hope they're out there looking for it so that they can tranquilize it and take it to a place that's a little more less populated.
Yeah, and this is crazy, man, because they said from the direction, for those of you that live over like in that area, whether it's Rowlett or Rockwall or what have you out there in that area, they said it was from the camera headed south towards Miller Road, which is kind of like halfway up Dalrock in that area out there in Rowlett. But I mean, holy crap. Now, they do believe it was a male mountain lion who, and if you want to get more freaked out, they believe was in search of food. Like obviously he would like to eat a deer or some sort of an animal, like maybe your small dogs that you keep in the backyard, and you didn't think ever in Rowlett that this would be a thing. But I mean, who knows? Now, they do say that these animals they can travel a huge chunk of land. Like he could travel 40 to 80 miles wandering around the area. So who knows? I mean, this was, what are we? December 1st. This was November 22nd when he was spotted. 8 days, 9 days, 10 days later, who knows where the hell this thing is?
Yeah, man. The problem is, one, nobody knows where he is. And two, because I'm a National Geographic knucklehead. I spend a lot of time watching National Geographic videos and shows. Problem is, man, you don't know if he's decided this is like his territory, like he's marked it.
Right.
And which means they just become aggressive if you breach it. Well, I didn't know this was yours, dog, and you all upset. And if you got some smaller animals, you should probably keep them in the house for now.
Yeah, and see, this is what's crazy is because that area of Rowlett where they're talking about, I mean, he would have had to have gone west because the lake is on the entire other side. I mean, he's not going to swim across the lake, obviously. So unless he wandered down the bridge in the middle of the night and somebody would have seen him, there's only two ways into Rockwall from that area, 66 or 30 across the lake. So I doubt he went that way. And if he went south, you run into the lake eventually. And there's not a lot of open like land that's not developed. Now, maybe he circled back around and wandered through some fields and stuff, but you got to think, that he's that area is so developed, except when you start going back north. And there's some back areas, like as you take, from Rowlett back into Wiley in that area, I could see where, I mean, there's plenty of spaces out in that area that haven't really been developed up yet where you could have who knows what lives out there. And I wonder if that would be probably where he is, where there's not a lot of traffic, there's not a lot of noise, there's not hardly any people.
I think, I'm trying to think how I want to say this. Like, I'm bothered when you see bobcats, man. This is like 3 times bigger than a bobcat. This thing here is real, so I don't want anything to do with it. So I won't be staycationing out in the Rowlett area anytime soon. Yeah,
I mean, like I always said, if you're in Rowlett, you didn't quite get across to the good part.
Wow.
That used to be Rockwall Rowlett was a huge rivalry until they built that fake school in Heath, and now that's supposedly a thing. But, it's interesting because they say, and this is how crazy and rare this is. Now, I already told you, they haven't ever seen one as far as records go back in Dallas County that's been confirmed. Only twice in the last 15 years have they had confirmed sightings of mountain lions in the North Texas area. And that came in 2014. They confirmed one out in Glen Rose. And then in 2018, a couple of years ago, near Mineral Wells, they confirmed a sighting. And that was because the mountain lion was hit and run over by a car on some random highway out there.
Dude.
How'd you like that? You're like, oh, God, I killed a deer. And you get out, oh, God, that's a mountain lion.
No, man, I'm not interested in that.
Dude, have you seen, there's a video that this is probably about a month old now. It went viral of that guy, I think it was in Colorado, who was trail running by himself. And he came across a mother mountain lion, and that thing tracked him for 10 minutes all the way back down the trail. And he walked backward the entire way back down the trail yelling at it. And man, that thing kept like running at him and like throwing up its paws and stuff. I was like, oh my God.
I can't believe they didn't go attack him. You know what I mean?
I can't either. But they said it was because he was yelling at it and made himself look big and never turned his back on it. And that if you ever find, and hey, maybe Rowlett people listen up. If you come across this thing, they say do not turn your back on it. Don't try to run. It'll catch you. Don't just slowly walk back, yell at it, scream, make yourself seem like a threat because it won't attack what it perceives as a threat. Now, it may act like it's coming after you, and it may snarl at you and throw up its paws and stuff and try to stand up a little bit and make itself look big. But they say do not, whatever you do not turn your back on this thing because once you do, you're dead.
Wow.
Or it's going to, because by you turn your back for a second, it's going to pounce on you and get those claws in you, and who the hell knows what happens. And you don't want to wrestle with the mountain lion, man.
No, I don't think you do.
Let's keep in mind, they don't call it a mountain cat. It may look like one. They call it a lion, a mountain lion.
Lion.
I would crap in my pants. I mean, if I ever came across one of these things like that, because like you said, you see a bobcat from time to time around Dallas, depending on where you are. You may see one out in the neighborhood. You'd be like, oh my God, that's a bobcat. And that's a little weird. But I feel like if a bobcat attacked me, it's going to scratch the hell out of me. But I don't think I'm dead. A mountain lion comes after you. I don't like my chances.
Nah. Dude, that's wild, man.
It is wild. It is. And I don't know why, but I've read this story a couple of times. I do know why, because I grew up in that area. My buddy Juan, he grew up in Rowlett. I have several friends. Rashid lives in Rowlett. I know a bunch of people that live out in that area.
What was that thing that was attacking folks out there in Frisco? Was it a coyote?
Yeah. The coyote that supposedly was biting people, which I thought was really weird because coyotes are like super skittish, scared animals. Like, you ever see a coyote, if it's by itself, you just run at it and the thing will take off.
Well, I guess.
I mean, maybe it was a wolf. I mean, coyote, come on, man.
No, wolf is much bigger than a coyote.
Yeah,
man.
Coyotes are scrangy-looking, homeless-looking dog things.
Kind of like Wile E. Coyote.
Yeah, I mean, that's the type of thing. I saw something on Facebook that was an older post, but somebody was like, remember when this happened? And some lady had posted in an animal group, found a lost pup, let me know whose it is. And it was a coyote she had picked up off the side of the road.
Wow.
But that's what they are. I mean, they're mean, but they're scared as hell. I mean, I used to see coyotes all the time growing up in Rockwall. Now, if there's a few of them, you probably don't want to mess with that because then you got a pack and who knows. But, I mean, one coyote by itself, I mean, what are they going to do? Nothing. They might, like, yelp at you, and then you just, like, rah, and they go, roo, roo.
Dude, wow.
Throw a rock at it, whatever.
All right. Matt just dissing coyotes.
Well, it's true. That's how come when like the Arizona Phoenix Coyotes named their team that, I was like, well, great. You're never going to win anything. And sure enough, just saying. By the way, attacks by mountain lions are quite rare. In the past 100 years, fewer than 20 people have died from that. So, you know, unless you come across one that's defending its young or that is hungry like this and you've creeped into its territory, I mean, your chances, and part of the reason why is because it's not like humans are encountering mountain lions hardly ever.
Right.
They're very rare.
Yeah, they ain't trying to encounter you.
Yeah, they don't want to be around you. I mean, this mountain lion's out at 4 a.m. He figured, I guess I can get out now. Humans are back home from the bars, and they're not going to work yet. So let me wander around and see what I find. Maybe a little, a nice little Chihuahua snack in someone's backyard.
Yeah, dude. How awful is that?
Oh, I'm telling you, man.
Come out in the morning and find your dog's carcass.
Jeez. God, that got dark. Surely, depending on the size of the dog, you would just, like a Chihuahua, you would just eat it whole, wouldn't you?
No, I guess it wouldn't be much left.
Yeah, like you would just take one. Like, I don't even know if you'd know that your dog was gone. I mean, maybe you'd see like some, you know, that's when you'd have to get Dexter to come out and analyze the blood splatter and figure out what happened and all that.
Okay, that's enough.
All right, so there you go. That is a very exciting trip around the block here on the Jam Session podcast. And speaking of Rowlett, I mentioned there's only a couple of ways into Rockwall from that direction, but if you are out on the east side of the Dallas Metroplex, then I would encourage you to get into Rockwall, where you will find the wonderful people at Beer Geek Shop. Beer Geek Shop in downtown Rockwall. They have over 400 different craft beers from around the world. Everything in the shop is available in singles, and it's local, family-owned. Jason and Deidre, husband and wife team that own it out there in downtown Rockwall, right off the square in what they call San Jacinto Plaza. It's where we buy our beers. It's a phenomenal place to get your beers, and right now they still have it. Although I was talking to Deidre, might change up the 6-pack for winter with some winter beers. But right now, you can get the Jam Session 6-pack at Beer Geek Shop in Rockwall. 6 beers, $22.50. I know. You're like, wow, what are the beers bad? Is something wrong with them? No, they're just discounting it for our Jam Session audience. It's a crazy good deal.
No, it's fantastic, man. There's some good beers on there. There's some bitter IPAs. There's some with a little more juice in it. There's a couple of stouts. There's a pepper beer. I mean, it's a wide variety, especially if you're trying to get an introduction into craft beer. You'd be hard pressed to do wrong going with that.
Yeah, handpicked by us. I mean, I picked 3, Jacques picked 3. 6 beers, $22.50 at Beer Geek Shop in downtown Rockwall. You can also check them out online. Don't forget about that. You can peruse their category. You can even place an order online, and then you can swing by and pick it up if that's easier for you at beergeekshop.com. So we continue forward here with you on the Jam Session podcast. And we are about to have a conversation here with ESPN Cowboys insider Todd Archer, who is brought to you by Blue Star Motor Group. And Blue Star Motor Group doing great things, of course. We tell you about them all the time. You can give Deb a call if you're looking to sell, if you're looking to buy, 817-881-4066. Blue Star Motor Group specializes in superior quality, Carfax certified pre-owned vehicles of all makes and models, like the 2014 Mercedes E-Class 350. MSRP new is over 65 G's. Carfax certified, brand new Continental Sport tires, heated and AC cooled seats, blind spot monitoring, and it has a warranty. and only 57,000 very pampered miles. Again, brand new, this thing is over 65,000. They've got it right now at Blue Star Motor Group for $21,789.
Man, sounds great to me.
Somebody go get it. That would make a damn nice Christmas present for somebody here in a couple of weeks. You can see all their inventory and review pricing at bluestarmotorgroup.com. Also, check them out on Instagram. They're there as well. You'll see customer reviews. But find them. They're big fans of what we do here on Jam Session, so support them as they support us at bluestarmotorgroup.com. And right now, again, brought to you by Blue Star Motor Group and BlueStarMotorGroup.com. We welcome in ESPN Cowboys insider Todd Archer joining us once again on the podcast. Well, Todd, here we are. No game this weekend, but did you enjoy the slaughter on Thanksgiving?
Hey, I don't know what you're talking about. They're only a game out of first place with 5 games to play. Why don't you look at it that way, Matt? Why do you have to just focus on the negative of a 25-point loss in which a coach called for a fake punt on 4th and 10 from their own 24? I don't know why you just go there.
That's a fair point. You're
Where's
right.
the holiday spirit?
You're right. I should be way more positive about this and just think that perhaps a 5-11 team could get the 18th pick in the draft.
I think I said it with you guys last week. The dream scenario is to be 5 and 10 going into that last game against the Giants, division on the line, and lose, and then you'll have a top 6 pick, not the 19th pick or whatever it would be as a playoff team.
Well, we'll see how it winds up in these final 5 weeks, but what stood out to you the most from a team that the last couple of weeks against the Eagles and the Steelers and the Vikings at least started to look a little better, I suppose? They had some takeaways a couple of weeks ago against the Eagles. You saw them slow down a little bit of what the Vikings were trying to do for a while. They get a win. And then Antonio Gibson and Washington football team just come in here and run all over them without any problems.
Yeah, and I think that's my takeaway is that the run defense looked like it did early in the season against Cleveland and some of those other games, probably the first Washington game as well, where their linemen would just get blown off the ball and huge holes and no gap discipline and all the stuff we always hear about when teams get run on. It was I was skeptical of the defense is really improving, especially on the ground. Well, I don't know. I thought Philadelphia thinks running the ball because their offensive line's all banged up and not very good. Pittsburgh opted not to run the ball because Ben just picked them apart. And then in Minnesota, Cook still had 100 and some odd yards against them. So I didn't think they really slowed him down. And then you knew Washington was going to come in and want to run the ball because they know they need to protect Alex Smith and get the ball out quick and use those guys. And they just dominated the game up front. You look at Baltimore when they play, whenever the heck they're going to play this game. Do you think they're going to slow down Lamar Jackson, J.K. Dobbins, and Mark Ingram? I don't. Dez might not have to catch any passes in this game.
Defensively, they've still got a lot of problems. I think the one thing that is, I don't know that they do anything well on defense, and that's part of the problem.
Yeah, let's talk about it. What do they do well? They don't rush the pass. I would say, oh boy, is rush the passer the best thing they do?
I guess. I mean, yeah, because they don't really take the ball away. They don't stop. They don't run defense at all. They can't. They don't. Yeah, huh?
Their goal-to-goal defense, they've given up, I believe it's 20 touchdowns and 23 opportunities.
That's impressive.
And I think that percentage actually increased, or I'm sorry, the percentage actually decreased because it was 19 of 20 entering the Washington game. And so in goal-to-goal, Washington scored a touchdown and kicked a field goal, and they they didn't get a stop. So, yeah, that would be the 20. Yeah, I mean, that's hard. Think about that. That's hard to do. Like, you've one stop this year where a team didn't score points on you in goal-to-go situations. And that was the first Washington game up there. Might have been the opening drive where they stopped them at the 1 or 2 yard line. Yeah. That's hard to do. Like, you would think you just fall into some kind of fourth down stop at some point.
Well, we had this conversation, and it's connected to this, man, because we were saying clearly that they need some more personnel to run this 3-4 that they're trying to run. And I'm like, well, that depends on whether you want to commit to Mike Nolan and his scheme or whether you want to find another one. So would you Would you commit to Mike Nolan? You think they'll commit to Mike Nolan?
Well, that's two different questions. I would move on.
I know.
I would move on just because you're seeing the evidence of this thing, right? And you can go through Mike Nolan's history. He's a tremendously nice man, and he's had success in this league. But right now, it's just not working for him. I don't know if Mike McCarthy would make that change because he was loyal to his assistant coaches in Green Bay. From afar, it always seemed like Packers fans and Packers media wanted him to get rid of Dom Capers, and he never did until the very end. And then he brought in Mike Pettin to run a different version of a 3-4. My biggest issue is, can you just play like some legitimate base defense? Like, do you have to be a nickel all the time? Like, when a team is in two tight ends, you don't need to be in your nickel defense.
Right.
When they're in a regular 21 personnel, you don't need to be in your base defense, your nickel defense. The percentage of snaps, the nickel is always going to be higher than base just because of the way the game has gone. But I wish I had the number in front of me. I think Jordan Lewis has played like of his 85% of the snaps in games he's played this season. I think he was hurt for a little bit. But when he's played, I'm curious to see what his play time has been because it just seems, I don't know, you get a little bigger and stouter out there when teams are just running it on you. And it's just I would move on, I guess, is the answer to the question. I just don't know if Jerry, and there's probably some other coaches that they'll move on or should move on from as well when you look at what this defense has not done.
How much do you think when they move into the offseason? I mean, still they've got 5 games. Maybe they'll be I can't even say that with a straight face, some drastic improvement. But at this point, it is what it is. But how much do you think that they'll look at this as a throwaway season and go, well, all these injuries and the COVID situation, they didn't get to install the things they wanted to, and just kind of give them a mulligan and see in 2021 with a normal offseason, hopefully, if the pieces and the coaching staff actually can make this work?
Who are you going to believe, me or your lying eye, right? I mean,
exactly.
when you know, right? I mean, it's you can hit and hope that things are going to get better, but what are going to be the drastic changes they're going to be able to make on this defense to improve the personnel if we got salary cap going down, right? It's going to be $175 million. You got a franchise tag that you're going to put on the quarterback of $37 million. You better hit on every single draft pick you're going to have to come in and play. Well, I mean, when's the last time they did that? And I get you can't even go to 2016 because Jalen didn't even play his rookie year. But if you want to go 2016, really good draft class, right? But why is it a really good draft class? Well, it was Zeke and Dak. It wasn't because of Jalen and Anthony Brown. And I mean, they were, that's fine. But this draft class looks pretty good when you go CD and Diggs and Biotish is maybe your center. Do we really know what Neville Gallimore is? He had a really good game against Pittsburgh. I don't know if he's made a play since that game. So there's a lot of things that you have to look at, and how do you get this team better? And then that's the how to get this defense better. From is that the micro point of view? Well, then in the macro point of view, you can get into the Dak discussion on, do you really want to pay him $37 million if you have a top 5 pick and you can use that money to allocate it elsewhere and maybe grab a quarterback at the top of the draft? I'm not advocating for that. I'm just raising the possibility of, should that be in their thought process as they go forward? And every public answer so far has been, no, Dak is their guy. So that's what I believe will happen, that they'll tag Dak, hope maybe sign him to a deal, and then try and fit in some pieces on defense to get better. But I don't know if it's with let's give Mike Nolan the benefit of the doubt. I think you're giving Mike McCarthy the benefit of the doubt, but I don't know if you give that same benefit of the doubt to Mike Nolan.
I would hate to give it to Nolan, let him rebuild the defense in whatever image he has, and then decide after he does that next year, okay, it didn't work out, because then you've wasted a year and you've turned your entire defense into a 3-4 defense. And maybe that's what Mike McCarthy wants to play anyway. I wouldn't. I'd be like, I tried it, and I think, and you tell me, Arch, because you've been around almost as long as I have now. Somebody's going to pay for this ridiculous season. If it's not going to be the head coach, it usually has to be one of the coordinators. And if it's not going to be Kellen Moore, maybe Bones Fossil will pay with his job.
I don't even think that would happen either. Mike's all in on that guy by either being talked into that fake punt or not putting his foot down to say we're not running that fake punt. In whichever scenario is not a good thing. You just can't call it a good call. That was not a good call. The game was 20-16. Your team just had your defense just had an interception. Who knows? Alex Smith isn't really lighting you up. He's paper cutting you to death, but he's not killing you with big plays. Maybe you get lucky and get another stop again. It's a one-score game. You turned it into a two-score game by calling that fake punt, and it just changed the complexion of the game. Jacques, I've said this to you, Matt. I know I've said it to you too. Here's what I want out of special teams. Just be a net zero. You don't have to make all these great plays or like, oh, we won it on special teams. No, just be a net zero. Just don't kill me. And, we can think of games where they've kind of killed the Cowboys. Now, the Atlanta game was a little bit of both, with the fake punch and then the watermelon kick, and Zerline hit the field goal at the end. But there's just too much, making it up as I know they're not making it up, but it's just way too daredevilish at times for a team that is not built that way. They can't overcome themselves. If you had a great, talented team, okay, I can understand that. This is the 03 Cowboys right now, where Parcells managed games and managed them to victories with Quincy Carter at quarterback and a really good defense, that he wasn't taking unnecessary risks. And I think that was just an unnecessary risk.
Yeah, it's interesting, I think, when you look at this and you wonder about the changes that are coming. And your point about the quarterback, I think, will be interesting, because I wonder if they didn't play in the NFC East, if their thought process moving forward might be different. Because to me, you have to look at this and say, okay, if Dak was here, how competitive would we be in the next, whatever it's going to be, 4-year window or what have you, versus if we go out and get a new quarterback and it takes a couple of years. But the problem is the NFC East, I mean, you can look around and almost have these same conversations about every single one of the other teams, where you could say, okay, well, if we bring Dak back, if we can get to 8-8, 9 wins next year, we probably win the division.
Yeah, and I've been around here too long, and Jacques told me this from the first day I got here. It's not about winning the division in Dallas, right?
I would hope not, but it feels like it's a start.
I mean, there's, the Parcells, hey, just get in the tournament and who knows what can happen. I'm with you when that's a team that like the 03 Cowboys. No one expected that team to go and do anything, and they made the playoffs. But when it's the 07 Cowboys and you have home field advantage, or the 16 Cowboys and you have home field advantage and you lose, well, that's not about getting into the tournament and see what happens. That's about getting to the big game, or even a conference title game. Just win one game to get to an NFC championship game, and they've not done it. I don't know what the right answer is, and we'll just critique it if it's wrong. If they stick with Dak and they don't have the pieces in place, or can't put the pieces in place to improve the rest of the roster, we'll just criticize them for, well, they never should have done that. And then if they draft a quarterback, whoever you want to say would be in the top 5, and they add these pieces and it still doesn't work because the quarterback stinks, well, we'll criticize them for that. Which way do you want to go down, I guess, is the best way to say it. You need a quarterback. But, I mean, you can look at who's come in the last couple of years and shown right away that they can play. I like the Herbert kid in L.A. He seems to be doing a pretty good job. Josh Allen seems to be doing a pretty good job up in Buffalo. You got Mahomes, you got Watson, you got these guys. I mean, they've come in and been really good players.
The problem is you never know which one it is. And so there's 5 quarterbacks going to be taken in the first round. And 2 of them will be outstanding, and, one of them will be a bust, and one of them will be pretty good, and the other guy will be average. And the problem is you just don't know.
But is there an element of this in 2016, right? When Dak came in, that was a roster that was built for Romo, and those guys lifted Dak, right? So can the same argument be made? And maybe it's not. And again, gosh, I'm not advocating for this. I truly am not. I'm just raising the question. Can these other guys lift whoever the rookie quarterback would be up with a roster that they still believe and will always believe can win, whether it's the NFC East or not? They think they have built a talented team. That's another debate to have.
See, and I think that's the big question is when you look at this, because again, we're used to the hopscotch of seasons, the 13 wins and then you fail, and then the 12 wins and then the whatever it is. But this is 2 seasons in a row. You changed the coaching staff. Last year, you had more health, obviously, but any injuries happen in any NFL season. You go 8-8 last year, and then you follow that up, and the team that was only good enough to get to 8-8, when you have a few big injuries, they're one of the worst teams in the NFL. And I wonder if you look at it and you say, is there enough talent right now on this team, honestly, that a quarterback like Dak can actually win with it?
And I asked a former GM in this league, and he's like, you keep the quarterback because the quarterback makes everybody around him better. So that's their answer. Like, they're going to lie to themselves and say this is a great, talented roster, and you're going to have Tyron Smith coming back and Leo Collins coming back and Blake Jarwin coming back and a full season of Trayvon Diggs getting to do things in the offseason. And, we'll add these pieces, and Leighton Vander Esch won't have a broken collarbone and miss 4 weeks or 5 weeks, whatever it was. They're going to make all those excuses and say, no, we got the pieces. But then they don't look at it and say, well, Tyron Smith has missed at least 3 games in each of the last 5 seasons. Like, this is a growing Zach Martin's been going to, potentially miss the rest of this season, so he's going to miss 6 games this year. Biotis is pretty good, maybe, but do you really know? Mari Cooper seems to put up some numbers, but is he really a $20 million receiver? I don't know. CeeDee Lamb's had a really good rookie season. Gosh, he really wasn't very good against Washington. Michael Gallup, where's he gone? So they have to ask themselves hard questions, and they have to be truthful with themselves. And we've seen them not be truthful over the years in believing in what they are.
Man, they lie to themselves more than a 60-year-old stripper.
What? All right. How many of those have you met?
60-year-old strippers. Yeah.
I was going to say,
the last time you talked to one?
God, what club are you going to?
Anymore,
Seriously, wow.
Before we let you go, Arch, as I'm moving topics, I'm not even acknowledging this foolishness. I wrote a column for the Morning News to talk.
I was going to say, you started it.
Well, yeah, I just threw it out there, and now I'm leaving. I wrote a column in the Morning News that'll be up Tuesday afternoon or Tuesday morning, and it talked about just that. If you were going to get Trevor Lawrence, then if you had the number 1 pick, I'm like, okay, I'll take my shot with Trevor Lawrence, who's supposed to be the best prospect since Andrew Luck. But if you're not going to get him, I don't know if these other guys if these other guys are thought of so highly that you would take a chance on them, because I wouldn't. And the whole point being, you talk about Michael Gallup, man. He was averaging 20 yards a catch with Dak. He's averaging 9.5 yards a catch without Dak. CeeDee Lamb was averaging 15 yards a catch with Dak. He's averaging 9 yards a catch without him. Even Zeke is down damn near a half a yard in yards per carry without him. The quarterback makes a difference, man. He opens up everything else. He provides threat. And if you got that guy, great. But I mean, outside of that, man, anybody else you brought in, you'd be hoping they'd be good as Dak.
Right. And you'd be hoping that the other guys coming back that we all just talked about have it in him still, play at a higher level to lift that young guy who's going to be trying to figure it out on his own. But I think some of those numbers as to why those guys are impacted, yeah, absolutely. Not having Dak is a major part of that. But I think we need to look at the fourth quarter preseason game offensive line that they've employed here the last, for a good portion of the season, especially now going forward without Zach Martin out there.
Right.
That plays a part in it as well. And heck, Jerry even mentioned on his radio show last week, some of Dak's yards, as good as Jerry kind of said it, like they were garbage yards. We're down 50 points, and, they're going to let us throw it on them. Which I was stunned that Jerry would say something like that. I don't think he meant it that way, but that's how it can be interpreted. But none of this is going to matter because I think Dak will be back on the franchise tag or on a long-term deal. But again, now you have to hope that their free agency goes a lot better than it did this year. They're going to add some pieces. They have to. That's just the way it goes, somehow, some way. They're going to get rid of some guys on that defense because that's just the nature of it. And then you got to hope all of your draft picks can play right away. Yeah. I mean, you can't even rely on a fourth-place schedule. It's only 2 games. That really doesn't matter.
Right.
All right. Todd Archer, man, as always, we appreciate the conversation. Thanks for doing this with us.
Thanks, bro.
You got it. Thanks, folks.
And, of course, Todd Archer, as always, brought to you by Blue Star Motor Group. Check out pricing and inventory at bluestarmotorgroup.com or simply give Deb a call at 817-881-4066. That's Blue Star Motor Group, presenters of the great Todd Archer every week here on the Jam Session podcast. You know, I thought that was interesting, the way that he was talking about that. And when you look at it and you look at going into the offseason, I think it'll be, and I just had this thought, and I wonder what you think about it, Jacques, is let's say that the Cowboys, like a lot of people who say, well, you can't win with the expensive quarterback. We want to go get the rookie quarterback on the rookie deal. I'm curious because the Cowboys are not a franchise that spends big money in free agency. They always pay their own guys. So the money that you would save on Dak, while in theory, I think for some franchises, maybe it makes sense. I wonder with this franchise, okay, you save whatever it is and you get a quarterback who cost you however much, $18 million, and you get to pay him half or whatever the case may be with the pick early on in the draft. What exactly do you do with the money that you save on Dak if you're the Cowboys?
That's a good question, because if you look at their roster as currently constructed, you could say you can pay Michael Gallup now. Doesn't mean as much.
You can pay Leighton, I guess.
I'm not paying Leighton.
Well, see, that's what I'm trying to figure out.
I'm paying Leighton, but Leighton, understandably, is going to have one of those contingency deals because he's hurt through, and it's not his fault he's hurt. I mean, it's just the nature of the beast, man.
See, and that's what I wonder. Like, if the Cowboys did decide to do that, and for those of you that are listening that are like, no, get the young, cheap, early quarterback and build around him, where are they investing this money? So they sign Gallup, then do they keep Cooper when his deal kicks?
Or maybe they use that money to go out and go get a legitimate big-time free agent. You know, instead of bargain basement shopping, maybe they go get whoever's out there that's a legitimate, worthy. I just don't want to be in this city anymore because they don't know how to win free agent.
Yeah, maybe. It'll be interesting to see. I don't think they're going to move away from Dak. I think that you have a guy that you can win with. They believe that, and that you invest in that person. I would rather, instead of getting tagged, I'd just rather they figure this out and do the Deshaun Watson deal and get this done for 4 years so you can move some things around if you need to.
That would be, but they seem to have this problem coming to grips with this concept that they're not going to win the negotiation. They're going to have to take him for less years. And that's just the way it's going to be, because that's what every other quarterback is getting. And no, you're not going to shame Dak into taking a 5-year deal or appeal to, his sense of honor or something. He's already told you. Basically, I kind of want what everybody else is getting. As you pointed out, his numbers are basically essentially the same as Deshaun Watson's. That means 4 years, $160 million deal with it, Doc.
Right. And look, for those of you that, what are you talking about? Deshaun Watson's way better. Just go look at the numbers since Watson came into the league. I think Watson's a very good quarterback and will develop into a great quarterback. But right now, I don't know that he's light years ahead of what Dak is right now. I still would probably take Watson, but look, you're talking about a guy who's a first-round quarterback versus a dude who's a fourth-round quarterback, and you would expect that if both develop at the same pace, the first-rounder's still going to be better at some point.
One of the things you got to always remember when you're talking about quarterbacks, we pointed out quite a bit. I looked at a couple numbers, and it's just worth pointing out. Well, Dak can't do this, and Dak can't get us to the Super Bowl, and Dak, we won a Super Bowl. We need a Super Bowl winning quarterback. We need a quarterback capable of winning a Super Bowl. And the fact remains, man, Aaron Rodgers has been to the playoffs 9 times. He's got 1 Super Bowl. I don't think he's been to the Super Bowl since 2010. Drew Brees, he's been to the playoffs 8 times. He got 1 Super Bowl, dog. Russell Wilson, he's been to the playoffs 7 times. He's been to 2 Super Bowls. He got 1 title. Big Ben has been to the playoffs 10 times. He got 2 titles, and we know he was a bystander in one of those.
Yeah, the first one for sure.
Right. So what I'm saying is if you just look at Rodgers, Brees, and Wilson, 24 trips to the playoffs and 3 titles. They're not easy to do, man. There's no birthright assigned to it. It's hard as hell to win a title. And it's only Tom Brady, man, who wins titles like you, Matt, when you're playing on the PS4.
Yeah, there you go.
Outside of Brady, ain't nobody else winning titles on no multiple bases on the regular.
No, and I think that that's one of the things that's really interesting. Like when I say I think they can win with Dak, I think if you put the right pieces, much like you did around Rodgers for a season, or much like you did against Ben Roethlisberger, Eli Manning's a great example of that.
Magical season, you can get it done.
Right. Eli Manning has 2 rings because they put the right pieces around, and his defense played at a level so that Eli Manning, all they needed him to do was play quality quarterback, and that's what he did. So you can win. I think Dak can win a Super Bowl because I think he can, unlike Jimmy Garoppolo, I think Dak can make the throws when the game is on the line to win you the game. He has shown that multiple times in fourth quarter comebacks. Hell, he brought him back in the game against Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs. Now, they didn't win, but guess what? Dak wasn't defending Jared Cook. Or maybe they do win that game. Who knows?
Right.
You know, and so that's the point, is that it's so much more. And look, that's the position the quarterback gets to blame. I've said this multiple times. There is no other position where nobody sit here and says about Emmitt Smith, yeah, but 3 rings, man. You know, nobody looks at other positions and goes, well, how many rings did Michael Strahan win? No, they look. Now, granted, he won a couple of Super Bowls, but he's not in the Hall because of that. He's in the Hall because of his ability to get to the passer and be a dominant defensive end. Quarterbacks' legacies hang on rings. It's why we always bring up Dan Marino. Like, man, I don't know. Marino could never get a ring. He was damn good. No other position is that way. So I get it with Dak, but I think if you can put some pieces around him, I don't know who the hell's winning a Super Bowl with this defense. No one. You can get Tom Brady on here, and Tom Brady, yeah, maybe the offense would function better in Tom Brady's prime, or put Aaron Rodgers, peak Aaron Rodgers on this offense. He's still got to play with that defense week in and week out. But we now move into the NFL action over the course of the weekend, which, believe it or not, and I know this may blow everybody's minds, as we sit here on December 1st, which is a Tuesday recording this, the NFL action hasn't ended yet. Because of the wild situation in Baltimore, in which I think it was like 9 straight days they had players test positive for COVID. In the game that was originally supposed to be last Thursday night, that then got pushed back to Sunday, and then Tuesday, is now scheduled for December 2nd, which is a Wednesday NFL game between Baltimore and Pittsburgh.
A Wednesday NFL game.
At 2:40 in the afternoon, by the way, in the middle of the afternoon for us. How crazy is that?
I was going to say, how weird is that going to be? I think but it's also got an impact on the Cowboys game, as I thought it would be all along. And, it just goes to show, man, I don't know. The NFL basically is determined that we're playing all 16 games, we're doing this, and it just is what it is. Deal with it this year. But Wednesday afternoon is the weird part, man. But there's no fans there, so.
Right, it doesn't matter. You can do it whenever. Now, the TV audience, I have no idea. I would imagine it'd be quite low at 2:40 in the afternoon. Now, that's 3:40, obviously, on the East Coast. But think about that. If you're working out in California or on the West Coast, you're trying to watch that game at lunch.
Yeah, but check it out, man. Everybody working from the crib these days.
Pretty much, yeah.
So you can have it on while you're doing work and steal some time from the man.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. And, of course, as you mentioned, that does affect the Cowboys because for the first time in their history, the Dallas Cowboys will be playing on a Tuesday. That game, which was supposed to be this Thursday, I mean, the Cowboys were supposed to originally play on December 3rd, 2 days from when we're recording this. Then that game got bumped, and they kept moving it. It was going to be Monday at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, which I was like, oh, that's great. That'll be wonderful. Easy to record after that. And now they have moved it to next Tuesday evening. It'll be a primetime Tuesday night game, right now anyway, between the Cowboys and the Ravens. And we'll see how that goes, but a very weird schedule for the Cowboys, who then, of course, have to turn around and play that next Sunday.
Dude, it's, this is the season of improvise, adapt, overcome. I mean, that's just all it is. And you got to have the right frame, the right mentality, and the right framework mentally to handle it, man, because nothing is going as scheduled. Nothing is going as planned. It's screwed up for everybody, and you just have to roll with it. And if you do that, it's okay. It's if you allow it to frustrate you and get on your nerves and all that, that to me is when you'll have your biggest issues.
Yeah, part of the reason, just so people, because I've had multiple people go, why don't they just cancel it and move on and keep the schedules the same or whatever? Why don't they try and make it up? Apparently, there was some leeway that maybe they make it up in like a week 18 and kind of move playoffs around. Well, yeah. The reason why they don't cancel it is because it would be a forfeit. So there's this whole idea of like there's a forfeit if they cancel it. And if they don't play, if it's either forfeited or canceled, then the players don't get paid because you don't get paid if you don't play. And so that came into the whole thing of it where there was this back and forth, I think, about how do you make that so if you're going to make the Ravens responsible because they had the outbreak and you're going to cancel the game and say it's not played, well, then to the Steelers, they would raise this whole issue up. No, we didn't do anything wrong. They should have to forfeit. And then all this financial stuff comes into it, and it would just be the craziest thing. So, they kept trying to bump it back to make it happen so that they could get this played so that all the players and everybody gets paid. And it's a weird situation. You knew we were going to run into something like this at some point this season. Now, elsewhere around the NFL, what we saw yesterday evening, and again, we're recording this on Tuesday, December 1st, and I get it. We've had conversations about this guy before. I cannot recall the last time that a quarterback that was viewed on the level that Carson Wentz was viewed on, a guy that a couple of seasons ago people were talking about could be the MVP if he hadn't gotten hurt. He right now in the NFL might be the worst quarterback that's starting NFL.
No, I think I'm not going to sit there and dispute you, but I think it's as simple as well, let me rephrase it. I don't think it's all that complicated, man. I think you're talking about a guy right now who's just playing without a lack of confidence. I mean, he's got no confidence.
None. Some of the throws that he makes are so unbelievably bad. Like one of the interceptions he threw last night, where you sit there and you look at it and you just, what are you thinking that is supposed to happen on this play?
Yeah. No, I mean, you can't do anything when you're paralyzed from a lack of confidence. And now he's probably got the trifecta, which is you're playing without confidence, you're feeling the pressure of the contract, and you're like, well, why? You already got the money. Why are you feeling pressure? It doesn't matter. That's how the human brain works. And you're feeling the pressure of, well, they got this other guy behind me who's a second-round pick. And, your teammates are probably giving you the side eye like, well, damn, dog, what are you doing? And so it's he's got a big-time problem, man. And, one of his other problems, man, I don't know if you knew this. I want to do the math right quick. And then I'm going to ask you this question about Carson Wentz because I find it very interesting. But you can talk while I'm doing it.
Okay, because I think this is interesting as well. Carson Wentz is on pace right now to become the only quarterback in the Super Bowl era, the first to do this in the Super Bowl era.
That's a long time now.
To be sacked 65 or more times in a season and throw 20 or more interceptions in a season in the same year. He has 15 picks already this season. Carson Wentz as well. How about this? And this is incredible via NFL research. He has one of the biggest drop-offs in the history of the game, not just in the Super Bowl era or since the merger or what have you. In NFL history, one of the biggest drop-offs compared to his passer ratings from his previous 3 seasons. He has dropped off from his previous passer rating. From 2017 to 2019, he had a 98.3 passer rating. He has dropped down to 73.4 this year, a drop of 24.9 points. That is so drastic that only 6 other quarterbacks have had a drop anywhere near that from one season to the next. And only one of them, Wentz, under the age of 30. As a matter of fact, 4 of the prior 5 quarterbacks to have a drop that drastic retired immediately after the season.
Wow.
And you're talking about like Peyton Manning, who dropped 39 points in his passer rating from the previous 3 seasons and retired immediately. Brett Favre retired immediately. And then there's Carson Wentz, a 24.9 difference in passer rating at the age of 28. I mean, all these other, Mark Rippon was the only guy even close to his age. He was 31.
Unbelievable, man. I was going to say, and because I didn't really realize this. He was 11-2 as a starter in 2017.
Right.
Since then, Doc, because he had 33 TDs and 7 picks. Since then, man, that dude is 24-29 as a starter if you take out his second season. And he's got 16 TDs and 15 picks this year. I think all of that contributes to all of that. You're like, what the hell does that mean? That means the fact that you've been sacked, on pace to be sacked 60 times. The fact that you've thrown a bunch of interceptions. The fact that your offensive line is trash because, like the Cowboys, they've had insurmountable injuries. And the fact that your wide receiver core is average at best. All of those things have put you in a position where you're having this awful season. In addition to your own issues, which to me are, you don't have time in the pocket, so you make mistakes under duress. You don't have receivers, so you're not sure where they're supposed to be when they're supposed to be there. So now you guide throws instead of fire it in there. He's just a mess, and he probably just needs to sit, dog, and clear his head. But the problem with that is now if you sit him, you've benched him, and then it just gets worse.
Yes, because the second-round draft pick in Jalen Hurts is waiting. If he has any type of success, you've created, with the dude that you are paying a ton of money to, a huge quarterback controversy in Philadelphia.
It is a dumpster fire up there, bro.
It really is. They've got some problems. Now, elsewhere around the NFC East, believe it or not, the Giants at 4-7 are in first place. Washington is right there with them at 4-7. But, of course, the Giants beat Washington earlier this season. The Eagles at, what are they, 3-7-1, and then the Cowboys at 3-8. But you look at this, and it's really weird, man, in the NFC East. Everybody coming into the season, it's between Philadelphia and Dallas. Right. We now know with 5 games to go, it truly is between the Giants and Washington. The Giants have won 3 in a row. Washington has won 2 in a row. It'll be quite interesting to see how this plays out. And you can say, okay, the Giants have won 3 in a row. So what? They beat Washington, the Eagles, and Cincinnati. They got the Seahawks coming up, and they've got a tough close here in their next few games. Washington, when you look at what they have coming up, I think might have enough to get to 6 wins and win the division.
Who they got?
Well, Washington coming up. Now, they play Pittsburgh on Monday, December 7th. But as we know, Pittsburgh's going to be playing that game on, 4 days rest? And Washington has had like a mini bye and has plenty of time to rest up since their Thanksgiving Day game that they played against the Cowboys.
Right.
It's in Pittsburgh. Look, Pittsburgh-Baltimore is going to be a physical battle regardless of who is playing. On a short week, Pittsburgh's going to lose at some point. I don't think it's to Washington, but I'm just saying things are set up where everything the Steelers have been through, you finally get to play a Baltimore team in a heated AFC North Division battle on a Wednesday, and then 4 days later you turn around and play Washington, who's been sitting around resting the whole time.
If there's a chance for an upset, that'll be it.
Now, Washington closes in the final month. They have San Francisco. Now, they do have Seattle. Seattle will smoke them. Then they play Carolina and Philadelphia to close this thing out. I think out of their final 5 games, maybe it's the 49ers, maybe it's Carolina. I can see Washington winning 2 and maybe 3 games.
Yeah. Here's the deal with Washington, man. And I give Ron Rivera a lot of credit. I didn't initially, but he proved me wrong, and that's perfectly fine. When he made the switch at quarterback, from Dwayne Haskins going to Kyle Allen, he did it to say, at the time he did it, he's like, we have a shot in this division. Right. And we all kind of like, whatever, dog, what are you talking about? Well, it turned out he was right, because I think he looked at all those teams and said, they're all trash. Or, we can compete with them. They're not so much better than us. And I think right now Washington has the best team, and here's why. They got a defensive line that can be dominant, okay? And with Alex Smith at quarterback, they just get what they're supposed to get.
Right.
So Alex Smith ain't going to turn it over. He's really not. They're going to punt the ball if their offense isn't working. And they're just going to play the field position game till they have an opportunity. And Alex Smith is good enough to get you 17 to 24 points a game. And with the defense that they have and the way that they play, some weeks that's going to be enough. And they're not going to lose the game because of the quarterback. And so he doesn't have to be spectacular, but the way they're built right now, they can win with him, at the level that they need to win to get into the playoffs and get that 18th pick of the first round.
Yeah, maybe they can. It'll be interesting to see, because the Giants' next 5 games, the Seahawks, the Cardinals, the Browns, the Ravens. and then they close with the Cowboys. But those next 4 for the Giants, those are all teams battling for playoff position that are better than the New York Giants. They don't have Daniel Jones anymore. He's going to miss some time. I don't think – now, the Giants may beat the Cowboys. Who the hell knows in the final game of the year. But I bet the Giants win one more game along the way to get to 5 wins. And I think Washington's got a couple in there. I think Washington's going to win this division somehow out of the blue with 6 wins as a 6-10 division winner, hosting a home playoff game on Wild Card Weekend.
Is that hilarious or what, bro?
It's the craziest, wildest thing. I don't even know. It's just insane. It's insane to think that you could have a team that wins 6 games hosting a home playoff game.
I think it would be an even bigger deal in another year, but since I don't think there's much of a home field advantage this year,
right?
Because there's no fans, or there's so few fans, it doesn't really make a difference. That I don't think it bothers anybody to go on the road and play one of these bad teams.
No, I don't think it does at all. And I would like to see.
It is absurd, though.
I think, look, if you're going to say we're not getting rid of the idea, like you have to have a winning record or at least 500 to make the playoffs, and regardless you win your division you're in, then at least say you don't get a home playoff game. Like you won the division, so somehow you're in the playoffs, but we're not sending a potential 10 or 11 win team on the road to play a 6 or a 7 win team who got a home playoff game because they happen to play in a crappy division. At least do something like that.
Right.
So outside of that, by the way, the Broncos quarterbacks, they all tested negative, and they now are allowed to return. And it's one of those.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that's one of those things. It was funny because did you see Jerry Jones said on his radio show that he doesn't know what the problem was, that the Cowboys playing with Ben DiNucci is comparable to the Broncos playing with Kendall Hinton at quarterback.
Wow.
I was like, wow, so I guess Ben DiNucci won't be on the team next year. Like, holy crap. It's not comparable at all since DiNucci's been here with the team, and Hinton, a month ago, as I mentioned, was a sales. He was in sales.
Exactly. So
and
stop.
I know, and they didn't sign him to be quarterback. They signed him to the practice squad as a wide receiver.
Just stop it. Man.
Which, by the way, what a dumb. I picked him up and played him on my fantasy team just for the hell of it, and he ended up with minus points for me, so that was kind of wild.
Wow.
Yeah, but what are you going to do? So elsewhere, we move on from the NFL, and I thought that this was one of those things as we continue. Well, you know what? Let's tell you about a couple of our sponsors before we continue. And one of those, of course, is the wings at Kroger. I keep telling you about these. Many of you continue to say how much you enjoy them, and trust me, if you haven't yet, find a Kroger that has them and go get them because they're fantastic. You can grill them. You can throw them in the air fryer. Available at most North Texas Kroger locations. The Mango Habanero, the Buffalo Blue Cheese, whichever you prefer. Go back to the meat counter. Tell the dude in the back, I want the wings in the window. Wrap me up 2-3 pounds, whatever. I did 3 pounds the last time I got them, which ended up being about 27 wings, which was perfect for more than a couple of people to eat. Well, me, my lady friend, and my son, we each had 9. I think I could probably eat like 15 of these wings, maybe more. I don't know if I could do 27 by myself, but I could easily eat 15 minimum of these wings.
No problem. No, I like mine in the air fryer, man, and I like that Buffalo Blue Cheese. And I'm not even a Buffalo guy, but the blue cheese kind of evens it out a little bit for me, so that's what I like to roll with.
Yeah, and again, there's no bread on these wings. They're naked. It's meat and flavor.
Flavor, baby.
That's all you get. You don't even have to undress her. She just shows up and is like, I'm delicious. And you're like, hell yeah, this is great. Mango Habanero, Buffalo Blue Cheese, Kroger meat section, back in the back. Tell the guy, go get them. And also, let's tell you, of course, about CTC Chiropractic in DeSoto, because Jacques can tell you, if you ever wanted another man to have his hands all over your body, this is the guy.
Let me tell you something, dog. This is the day built for Dr. Cornell Cornish and CTC Chiropractic. I've been going there for years. I woke up with a crick in my neck this morning, man. I'm going this afternoon. And it's like, dude, heal me. And that's what he does, man. He gets your body in alignment. I've never felt better, and that's why I keep going. Now, I got to tell you, you don't have to take my word for anything. You can check him out in DeSoto by scheduling an appointment at ctcchiropractic.com or giving them a call, 972 807-2310. CTC Chiropractic takes most insurance, and it also has cash plans. You can get a maintenance plan. You can come when you feel like it. It doesn't really matter. But let CTC Chiropractic help you feel great. Schedule a visit today at CTC Chiropractic. It'll be the only time you want a man to put his hands on you like that.
There you go. Those angel hands at CTC. Make it happen. So we continue with you here. And again, a reminder, we do have Jam Session t-shirts available to all of you guys. And several of you have already ordered them. So get yours. We are going to end up adding some double XL and triple XL. That'll take some time. I know a couple of you have sent me some emails for those. But again, Jam Session t-shirts, they're $20 plus shipping. And you can send me an email with which size and color you would like. We have red and black with the Jam Session logo. We have right now in stock medium, large, extra large sizes. So send me your shipping address, where you want it shipped to. It's $20 plus shipping. And you can send me an email at matt@jamsessionpodcast.com. And we can get those sent out to you guys just in time. They'll be shipped pretty much immediately, maybe next day. You know what I mean. And you'll get them in time for Christmas if you want to rock them at Christmas, surprise somebody as a gift, what have you. Jam Session t-shirts. Order yours today. Send me an email, matt@jamsessionpodcast.com. Now,
Tough cotton, baby.
Yeah, I still need to get mine. I guess I'll probably see you sometime this week. And so then I can get mine, and it'll be delicious, and I'll wear it, and it'll be wonderful. And people will be like, hell yeah, that's a great shirt. I'm like, I told you. Get your orders in. We're going to sell out. I have no doubt. But let's continue here on the podcast with you, because this is something. Now, I had seen in a couple of articles about this, and I watched the 18-minute Dave Chappelle. I don't even know that I would call it stand-up comedy as much as just a really emotional. He's gotten to where he does that better than anybody, where he weaves comedy into what is really not even stand-up comedy, but almost like a real, like a speech of community service that is powerful and emotional. And this one is called Unforgiven, that he posted on his Instagram. And he is basically, and he even tells you towards the end, it's his plea to ask you to stop watching Chappelle's show.
It was powerful, man. A friend pointed it out to me, and I took 2 or 3 days to watch it, and he was finally like, dude, have you seen it? I was like, oh, my God. Okay, fine. I'll watch it at some point today. And so when I watched it, I was like, I hit him back, and I was like, dude, I should have watched it when you told me to. It was just, it was raw, and it made me think about some things that had gone on to varying degrees in my life. And I found it extremely relatable, and maybe that's why I connected so much to it.
Yeah, and so basically what it is that Dave Chappelle, and he tells this entire story about when he first started out in stand-up comedy. He was 14 years old. He tells a story when he was 15. Some comic asked, hey, that's a great joke. Can I use it? And Chappelle's like, yeah, sure, why not? And let him use it. And then he saw him again. It was like the guy was still using the joke. And he goes, hey, man, like, I just meant you could use it one time. Like, that's my joke. You can't have it. And the guy said, all right, well, I'll give you $50 to buy it from you. And Chappelle said, no, I need all my material. I'm just starting out. And the guy got in his face and said, fine, well, I'll just take it from you then. And he did.
What you gonna do?
Right. And he told a couple of stories about one time he was watching a card trick in New York City that was set up to rip people off. And he figured out that they were ripping people off, and they ripped him off. And he called him out on it. And a dude kind of took him around the corner and grabbed him up and said, you don't mess with a man's money. Don't mess with the ability to feed ourselves.
Yeah.
And so then he gets into how when he originally was getting Chappelle's show on Comedy Central, that Comedy Central basically bent him over and took whatever they wanted. And he tells the story. And this is, we've told you about Chris Fitzgerald, the lawyer here, Chris W. Fitzgerald, that's a sponsor of the show with Fitzgerald Law, and how important it can be with business transactions and lawyers to look at things for you. Well, Dave Chappelle says he's 28 years old. He's an expecting father. He's not making any money. He needs money. And he goes into this meeting with Comedy Central, and there's all these dudes around the table, basically. And they're like, oh, yeah, this is a great deal. Like, trust us. And it's all these pages of legalese. And he tries to read it and figure it out and just signs it and figures he's good. Well, he didn't realize, it sounds like at the time, that Comedy Central now owns his name and his likeness into perpetuity.
Dude. That means like forever, baby.
And so apparently when he left the Chappelle Show from Comedy Central, they didn't pay him. And he didn't get paid for Chappelle's show. And so now recently, Netflix and HBO Max have taken the show and have put it up on their services. Now, Netflix has taken it down because Chappelle was pissed off and said, look, I never got paid for that. They took me. They took my talent and they didn't pay me for it. I don't want this show on Netflix. And Chappelle does all these stand-up comedy specials with Netflix. So Netflix like, cool, we got you. And they took it down. HBO Max, on the other hand, basically has given him the finger. And apparently, at least as of today, it was still up on HBO Max service where you could watch it. And he is asking you, and this was amazing. He looks at the audience and looks at the camera and says, please, he says, don't boycott the network. Like he's saying, I don't care if you watch HBO. Don't watch me. Don't watch Chappelle's show on HBO Max until Comedy Central pays me. Now, if Comedy Central pays me and makes it right, then cool. But until that happens, he is asking all of his fans that if you've ever supported him or if you've ever enjoyed anything he's done, to please not watch Chappelle's show.
I was struck by that whole 18-minute deal, man. I was struck by how as successful as he's been, as much money as he's made, as many accomplishments as he's had, he ain't never forgot nothing, man. He's never forgotten any of the slights that people, or how people took advantage of him when he was young and coming up in the business. And it really resonated with me, man, because I'll tell you guys this. You know, it was Judy Babb, journalism teacher in high school, who thought I was the greatest thing ever. My last 2 years of high school. And when she filled me up with so much confidence from the work that I did, that when I went to Ohio State, I just assumed I was going to be great. In a lot of respects, I was once I got established. And so you got to remember, man, I accomplished every goal I had at Ohio State. I accomplished every goal I had in terms of getting internships, including going to the New York Times for a summer where I too lost $150 playing 3-card money on the street. And then I get a job at the Dallas Morning News right out of college. And then 3 years later, I'm on the Cowboys beat. My career has just been one thing, one big, long, dance with all the beautiful women. And then I get a review, man. And on that review, it says, I'm neither a skilled reporter nor writer. And I was just like, the hell? Like, you put this in a review? You really think that? This is a conversation I had with myself. And I took that review and I highlighted those words and I hung it in my office. And it stayed in my office the entire time I lived at that house, which was about 4 or 5 or 6 years. And I looked at it virtually every day. And I never forgave that guy. I don't care if he believed it or not, but those were some cruel words to say to a person. And so even once I had more success later, man, he would call, because he was my boss. He would call, hey, congratulations. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Hey, what about that? Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Like, I had nothing else to do with him after that, man. And like today, I still don't mess with him, man, because I'm like, dude, you tried to take me out when I was a youngster. And it didn't work, but I've never forgotten it. I was trying to figure out if I needed to forgive about that. But I was like, I don't know if I need to forgive. I just hadn't forgotten about it.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those things, I think, in anything. Like, especially when you're in the media of any sort, whether it's writing or radio or TV or what have you. I mean, I remember like early on some of the people who would call in and be like, oh, you suck, you're horrible. But now, I mean, at some point you get into it where it's kind of like Chappelle, I would imagine, where, I remember the very first time I was on air in college that somebody called and told me that I suck. Like, I remember it vividly. And obviously, throughout the course of my career, there have been who knows how many, I mean, probably hundreds of people that have told me that. And I just, at this point now, I find it comical. Now, I can remember like the recent ones, like in the last couple of days, once we've been doing some more stuff on the ticket, there's people that listen to the ticket that it's just, if you're not one of the regular guys, then you suck. I mean, you must not be any good, which I always found comical. And like, for instance, the last one was, I don't even remember who it was, but it was some dude that tweeted at us when we were filling in the other day, who basically said that, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was something about how, oh, they got fired from ESPN because their ratings were so low, but Cumulus still has to pay them. And I laughed out loud when I saw that because it's like, oh my God, you have no concept of anything radio because none of those things is true. I was like, we didn't get fired from ESPN. We didn't have low ratings. And trust me, Cumulus is no longer paying us. All right. I mean, that's not how that works. And if it was, and I thought that was so funny, I was like, you are such a fucking moron and have no idea of the concept of what we do that you honestly think that a company that thought you were so bad and your ratings were so low would then put you on their number one station in the entire country for Cumulus. Just because
you do their biggest show.
Right. And let you fill in on their afternoon drive show because I just thought, I was like, man, like, listen to what you're even saying to yourself. And so you remember things like that because that was the most recent one. That was a couple of days ago. But all the ones in between, I mean, trust me, when you're doing what we do. Now, a lot of you that listen to the podcast enjoy what we do. So you seek out the podcast on purpose and you like it. But sometimes when you're filling in on the radio, not everybody knows who you are or wants to listen to you, which is fine. That's the nature of the beast. And I always appreciate the support because sometimes I'll retweet things that I get sent and I find them hilarious. And I legit laughed out loud because I was like, God, this dude is so clueless, like such an idiot that is funny to me. And then, you get a lot of the people that do like what you do. Hey, man, you're great. Like, I don't know what this dude is talking about. I was like, neither do I, obviously. But I've always found that interesting. And I think earlier in your career, before you've had some success or before you have been certain places, it can be when you have those things, much like Chappelle's talking to you, you don't necessarily know. Like, you can believe that you're talented and some people will tell you, but then you have other people who don't and you're not sure. You're like, man, I'm really good. I felt like I'm good. People tell me that I trust that I've got a talent to do this. But man, these two people call in and tell me I'm horrible and that I suck.
Well, I think the most important thing to do, and I do this with people I mentor, my dad, who's a real wise guy, explained it to me when I was in college. He said, what you have to do, and this really applies to anybody, man, and it doesn't matter whether it's journalism or whatever field you're in. He says, what you have to do is you have to accumulate mentors, 2 or 3 or 4 of them. You don't need very many of them, but 2 or 3 or 4. You have to tell them your job as a mentor is to guide me down the path of this career I'm taking and to always keep it real with me. If I sucked or this project or this thing was awful, then you got to tell me, hey, you're better than that. Here's why this is bad. And you rely on those people to keep it real with you. And if you got a good set of mentors, they'll keep it real with you. And then when you get out in the world, no matter, and I'm not talking so much about fans or people who don't know the business. I'm talking about bosses and coworkers and stuff. Whatever they say, if you have that strong group of mentors, it can't shake you. Because, and this is just how it is in life, man. Matt can do a great project. And I can walk up to Matt and say, hey, man, I got to tell you, Matt, I expected more, man. That's one of the worst projects I've ever seen. Maybe you'll do better on your next one. Well, why did I tell him that? Because I want his job. I want him to feel bad. Right. I don't want him to have any confidence.
Sure.
You can have bosses who don't like you who say, you can't do this, McLaren. This is the worst thing ever. You'll never make it in this business. Why? They just don't like you for whatever reason.
Right, yeah.
And if you buy into what those people are telling you, you can get off track real easy. So you go to your mentors, you send them the same project. Give me an honest feedback on this. I need to know. Oh, this was one of the best I've seen from you, Matt. Or, this was really good, but if you had done this and this and this, it'd be better. Dude, when people ask me to mentor them in journalism, this is probably during the 10-year stretch when I was really mentoring a lot of people, whether it was Chris Haynes from Yahoo, who's now with TNT, or whether it was Mark Spears or, some other people. I would tell them, man, do you really want this? Because I'm going to keep it real with you. Yeah. I said, no, I mean, like, for real. Like, yeah. So, like, as you get a better relationship, man, I called up somebody we know one time who I used to mentor. And I was like, what the fuck was this, dog? He's like, what are you talking about? I said, what the fuck is this you wrote in the paper today? This is the worst shit you've written in a year. What are you doing? Well, why do you say that? And then I gave him a list of things. He says, oh, Yeah, I think you're right. Well, I was, I said, okay, man, you're better than that. Don't put that shit out there. And then, then I call him back, 2 weeks later. This is what I'm talking about right here. That's what you're capable of doing.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because in a lot of different types of jobs, I think no matter what you have, now sometimes in the media can be a little bit different, obviously, but most people, unless you own your own company, like Jacques and I, but even then, like we'll say like, oh, I didn't like this, I didn't like that, whatever, we should do this different. If you have a boss, at some point, that boss is going to critique you. And so in radio, I always thought this was really interesting. And this is kind of like what Chappelle is talking about, where who do you listen to, what is okay, and what are you going to pay attention to that matters? And it's one of those things, especially with what we do. Like people used to tell us, like, for instance, like if we did karaoke or if we did play-by-play or whatever it was, there were certain segments that we did on the radio that we didn't necessarily think were awesome, but they got really good ratings. And I always thought it was interesting. I was like, for those of you who think whatever it is that we do isn't any good, why do you think we do it every single week? It's because you can look at numbers. You can tell how many people essentially are listening. And so you focus on what the people like that drive the ratings. You know why? Because we had meetings with the boss who's been doing it for a damn long time and is considered one of the best in the business. And he would sit there and say, more of this. And so you go, okay, because you trust him. At least I did anyway. And it's one of those things where I've always thought that was interesting. And I don't know at what point, and I'm sure Chappelle has gotten to this point as well, where now he can pick and choose what he wants to do. And he knows he's probably got stand-up buddies at the elite level that he goes to and says, hey, man, check this out. What do you think? And I'm sure he's got people in the stand-up world that tell him, dude, that one's a bomb or whatever it is. And it's like that with what we do as well, where we would have a guy that we could go to and you sit there and 50 people could call in and tell you suck. But then this guy goes, I'm telling you, I've done this for 30 years. I'm one of the best at what I do. This works. Who am I going to listen to? The 50 or the one that I knows exactly how this works and what's going on?
Well, yeah, and that's why you got to have a small circle of people you trust and that you listen to, because some people, they just don't know. I've done things on the radio in the 4 years I've been doing it full time where I was like, God, people like that? And then you get the ratings, you go, Matt, I have no idea why people like this, but they do, so I guess I'll do it some more.
Oh, yeah. And it's one of those things as well, I think, with the whole thing with Chappelle that I think, and I completely agree with him, is the idea of stealing content where people have taken content from him is, especially in the world of comedy, but I think in anything creative, that type of theft is just god awful. And, I've had people say to me before, oh, you got this idea from this. And I was like, no, I didn't. Like, I would never take somebody else's idea. Now, there's a base of everything, obviously, and you'll hear things and you may say, oh, that's really cool. And radio works this way, where you may hear something on a station in this market and you go, I'm going to tweak it and make it my version because I like the idea, but I'm going to make it my version if I ever go to a different market. But for the most part, like nobody's out there trying to steal bits or steal content. It's funny because if you're ever on a station where somebody does voices and then you do voices, oh, you're just trying to be this guy. You're trying to do what he does. No, I've grown up doing this my whole life. This is who I am. So guess what? I can do different voices and I can do different things. So can this guy, apparently. But my content, if you listen to it, is totally different or whatever it is. There's a lot of that. And so, at some point, you know who to listen to and where to go. But I agree with Chappelle that at this point, he did. He even says, I did sign a contract. I signed a really bad contract that I didn't understand. And that was on me. But at this point, they should be paying me and they haven't. And I agree with them. Well, I don't think people should steal stuff like that.
The other thing he said that really resonated with me in this country, man, he said Netflix didn't have to do what they did. They did it because once I explained it to them, they thought it was right. That doesn't happen a lot. Like, well, this is what we should do. Well, it's going to cost us money if we do it, but we got enough money. But this is what we should do. Like Comedy Central or whomever. Like, let me ask you something. If they owe Chappelle, let's pick a number, $40 million. All right. Do you think 40 million really affects their daily business?
I don't know. I with Comedy Central, I have no idea. I mean, Netflix could eat Comedy Central
You know, whenever you've got a huge company, man, they're making money. I mean, it's like when you get laid off at the newspaper. You're not getting laid off because the newspaper's not making money. They're not making enough money.
Right.
They want to make 20% profit or 23% profit. And so, you know, you can always do what's right if you choose to. And you don't have to, but sometimes it'd be nice if you chose to.
Yeah, it's one of those things, you know, where I think that at some point they should make it right with Chappelle, especially to where they're at right now. HBO should make it right with Chappelle. And, you know, to me, I think Netflix looked at it and said, we don't want to piss this dude off because he's got that power now. And he does a lot of Netflix special. I watch everything he puts out, like the new comedy stuff that he comes out. I love Chappelle. Yeah. He's my favorite stand-up comedian of all time. I think he's just a genius above geniuses. You know, and so Netflix realized it's not worth pissing this dude off when he is working with us and creating original content. It's not worth having this and making it frustrating. He doesn't like it. Let's get rid of it. And so, you know, good for Netflix for doing that. Bad for HBO for not following suit and pulling it. And look, Comedy Central, pay the dude and you can have it wherever you want it. Like he's just saying, like, just make it right. Just pay me for what I created for you that really brought you all kinds of income and made you all kinds of money that you haven't decided to give me a dime of.
Yeah. Well, I can see, man, it would drive you crazy.
Yeah, it is. That's the type of thing. Like I've always felt that way. Like I remember when Napster and stuff first started coming out, and it never crossed my mind that downloading a song here or there was illegal. And then once you realize it, you're like, damn, like I'm stealing artists. I immediately stopped doing it. And that's how come I never mind the pay sites. Like there's all kinds of things you can get for free easily in today's world, whatever it is. And I just like, to me, at the core of what I am, I'm like, you know what? Can I get this for free or way cheaper than it should be? Yes, but I believe that this artist created this and I should pay them and reward them for creating this original content or whatever it is.
Right.
So, yeah, I get Chappelle. I'm right there with him, man. And I do love Chappelle. And so I will listen to him and I will not watch Chappelle's show on whatever happens to be put out on, which is a shame because it's hilarious. I mean, I used to watch it back in the day when it was on Comedy Central and it was really funny. I mean, he's the best, man. He's the best. He is. And that's just me. I mean, that dude can make any story and touch all aspects of the story and still make it hilarious inside of itself.
No, he is a genius, and I don't use that term lightly.
All right, that'll do it for us here on this version of the Jam Session podcast. Again, get your T-shirt orders in, man. Make those happen if you would. That would be fantastic, and we'll get them shipped out to you just in time for Christmas. $20 for Jam Session T-shirts plus shipping. Send your emails to matt@jamsessionpodcast.com. I also wanted, before we go, I wanted to close out with this because I had just gotten this message while we were recording this. We have a new ride that Blue Star Motor Group is featuring. And of course, they bring you Todd Archer every week here on the podcast. And this is like super updated for those of you. This week, the 2017 Jaguar F-Pace S, all-wheel drive, Carfax certified one owner. It still has remaining factory warranty on it. Loaded driver's assistance package, tech package, heads-up display, brand new tires. This is nuts. The MSRP on this thing is over $68,000. It only has 46,000 miles on it. You can get it through Blue Star Motor Group for $36,991.
Dude, that's another one that I'd be all over in a different life.
That is wild, man.
Those are the kinds of car deals I'm after. Luxury car, let somebody else take that initial hit, and then I go clean it up for about $400 a month.
Yeah, and it's only a couple years old. There's only 46,000 miles on it, and they've got it for $30,000 less than it would be if it was brand new.
Dude.
This is incredible. Yeah, somebody go do that. You talk about a Christmas present. Jeez.
Wow.
Yeah, so give Deb a call or check them out online. You can find them at bluestarmotorgroup.com and on Instagram. You can see their inventory and all their pricing for that new feature, that 2017 Jaguar, $36,991. But thanks for listening to the Jam Session podcast. You can find us on Instagram at Jam Session Cast. Of course, don't forget about our YouTube channel. Subscribe today by searching Jam Session Podcast. Find us on Twitter at McMatt Radio, at JJT_journalist. Thanks to Purple Elephant Music for the music you hear at the end and beginning of each episode. He is the radio and TV star, the sexy Jean-Jacques Taylor, and I'm just a guy, Matt McLaren. Please remember, tell your friends if you like what we do. Tell them you found this great new podcast to subscribe, rate, and review, and we'll catch you next time on the Jam Session Podcast, available everywhere you listen to podcasts.